Rogue. Oh boy. You know, back in the day when Rogue first came out, she had a different leadership. And in fact, Rogue was one of the first and one of the only characters to ever get straight up nerfed. I'm not talking, you know, released with some sort of effect, and then later on they say, oh, well, the effect was bugged, like with Quicksilver, there's too many hits, or whatever, blah, 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 the effect is not working as intended. No, the devs straight up admitted they made a mistake with her original leadership, which was much more potent than 36% all defense, and now we even have like 50% all defense, so this doesn't even matter anymore. But yeah, Rogue is one of the original characters, or one of the first characters, and one of the only characters that it's ever been nerfed. That's how powerful she could be. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today, man, Rogue, man, there's so many possibilities. There's so much potential for this character. Her comic book power and sort of abilities, they translate so well to Marvel Future Fight. Her abilities literally mirror and may have been inspired to create abilities that exist now in Marvel Future Fight, like remove active debuff, or active buff, excuse me, power absorption. That's literally what she does, and that's literally something that was introduced to the game around the time, I think, that she was introduced, maybe a little bit earlier, but it wasn't in the game from the beginning. And yeah, Rogue is just, you know, there's so much potential for this character, and it's really up to the devs. If the devs want to do it, that's really what it hinges on. If they want to do it, Rogue can get a rework and be an absolute powerhouse. And if not, we're going to have another sort of, you know, slightly above average speed type character. So what am I talking about exactly? Well, rewind back to June 11th, 2017. I think that was the last time I made a dedicated video for Rogue. It's been time, boys. It's been over 2 years. And check this out. Look at this fresh-faced goon with his big dorky glasses and his little, you know, recovering fuckboy addict haircut shit going on, the goofy-ass chair. And then look over there, more importantly, adaptable, applies to all allies, 24% chance for immunity to all damage. Now, the interesting thing about immunity is that when it was introduced, or not when immunity was introduced, but when Rogue was introduced with this leadership, that's when we started to see characters that had native penetration. We hadn't seen characters, and we didn't have characters in Marvel Future Fight, I believe, before Jean Grey, that had penetration on their skills, and we didn't have the CTP of destruction yet either, so there was really no way to penetrate. So characters like Elsa, characters like Black Bolt, who could create immunity on one of their skills, especially if it was like a skill with a 5-second cooldown or a 6-second cooldown, and the immunity lasted for 5 or 6 seconds, those characters were extremely powerful because of their defensive properties, and that they could stay alive indefinitely. You know, Elsa's rotation, start with the 5, end with the 4. 5 gives you the immunity and the damage and the proc, you do all your other skills, and then you end with her iframe skill that stalls long enough until you can do 5 again. And it was such a clean rotation for these characters. And then Jean Grey came along and shat on everything with her penetration on her 5th skill, able to kill anyone regardless. You could only hide from her if you were in iframe. But Rogue had it, 24% chance for immunity, and that would basically give everyone on the team immunity. I'm not sure exactly, I can't remember exactly how long the immunity lasted, if it was just 1 second or 2 seconds, but it had a very short cooldown, and so getting hit a lot, you know, every single time you got hit, you know, if a skill hits you 10 times in 1 second, let's say, I mean, there are some skills that hit you that many times, you would have 10 chances with a 24% chance each time to trigger that immunity. So you would never ever get bursted down by characters that hit, you know, multiple times, because that immunity would eventually trigger, that immunity would pop up, and then because there's no immunity penetration at this time in Marvel Future Fight, or at that time, you would be safe. And she had one of the best and one of the most defensive and one of the most PvP centered leaderships in the game. Yeah, that's right, Rogue. But it was too strong. It was too strong, the dev said, as far as my memory goes, if I'm recollecting things properly, and they changed it to 36% all defense. And obviously, I don't need to tell you that's a piece of crap compared to what they had. But even still, Rogue has so many good abilities. She has so many strong abilities that give her the potential to be, you know, a perennial all-star in Marvel Future Fight, an absolute banger. And I'm not just saying that because she's an X-Men, but, you know, she has the power to drain other players, other characters, other heroes and villains' powers. And that is so cool. Now, there's always those people that will interpret that as saying, well, why can't we absorb their skills and then use their skills? That is, you know, in terms of coding, that's probably outside of the realm of possibility. That's like saying I want Mystique in the game, and she can transform into any one of the other 200 characters, and she can use their skills and etc. That's just kind of impossible. There's almost no way to actually make that happen because it just costs too much, and there's too much strain. There's, you know, they don't even do that in AAA games where you have a character that has 200 different transformations. That just doesn't happen in video games because there's just too much going into all that data for something that's, you know, not even going to be that special at the end of the day. It's not a skill that's easily expressible, but she has so many other skills that are so good. She has active buff removal on 2 different skills. They actually, yeah, here, 2 and 5, which are meta, you know, even now, and she could also have incapacitation if they give her a rework. She buffs her own physical attack. She buffs her attack as well again here. She gives herself immunity. She has decreased debuff duration. Now, this should probably just be remove debuffs, but, you know, whatever, fine. She also has healing, and then she has, you know, damage reduction, so she's harder to kill. She has guaranteed dodge. She's harder to hit, and then she increases her own buffs, which would be very cool if she could steal buffs. Now, we don't have buff stealing yet in Marvel Future Fight, but that would be the next step, I think, for Rogue. Rather than stealing characters' skills, rather than stealing characters', you know, animations, or even the look of the character, although this is hideous, just steal the effect. So, you know, let's say a character like, who am I going to choose here? A character that has a really strong self buff. Let's say Namor. Namor applies a self buff to all allies with his 5th skill, Killer Whale Raid, and then Rogue comes along and hits him, and she steals that 55% all attack, 70% all defense, 20% all speed, and takes it away. Or perhaps she takes away passive effects, so Mr. Fantastic, he has his shock absorption, or whatever it's called, elastic skin, that allows him to have physical damage reduction, and he has immunity to fracture. Maybe Rogue hits him, and now she gets immunity to fracture for 10 seconds, and she gets these things. Oftentimes, these things are not necessarily useful against itself. So in the case of being immune to fracture, Mr. Fantastic doesn't have fracture on any of his skills, so it's not exactly useful to steal that from him if you're going to continue to fight him in PvP if it's 1-on-1. If it's 3-on-3 and they brought along someone else that deals fracture, like Spider-Man or Strife or something like that, then yeah, that's pretty useful. But regardless of it being useful or not, I mean, you want the character to be strong, but you want the ability to be thematic and to actually feel as though you're playing as the character. So in that case, even though it might not be the most meta ability, and I'm not calling for Rogue to be like a super powerhouse that can just kill everyone and dominate the game by draining people's powers or removing them or stealing them, it would just be really cool. I don't really care if it's a meta effect. If Rogue can steal even some of the character's powers, that would be so dope. It would be amazing. Even if there was just some sort of visual cue, and they're not necessarily stealing their powers, but there was some sort of, like, you know, effect. We don't have a lot of effects that show things going from the enemy to the player. We have obviously a lot of skills that aim at from the player and aim at the enemy, but how cool would it be to see, you know, Rogue, let's say, punch the enemy with one of her skills, and then the enemy sort of glows for a second, and then that glow breaks apart and then goes back to Rogue. That would visually signify what we know Rogue's power to be, which is, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to steal your strength, and I'm going to keep it for myself. And it doesn't even matter. That could just end up being a heal for her. I don't really care. The point is, it would be damn cool. So I just wanted to make a video sort of espousing all of the ideas that I have and all of the sort of potential that Rogue has as a character, because even when she first came to Marvel Future Fight, people were like, damn, Rogue, okay, we got this new tanky speed character that's going to usher in a new era of, you know, defensive, you know, match and counter match against these super powerful blast characters like Jean Grey. That wasn't the case. Rogue really never made it very far, and even now, you know, you could take her into some content and she's not going to impress you pretty much in any sense of the word. She's just not going to impress you. But there's the possibility. There is the possibility that Rogue can be amazing, and it just takes Netmarble to realize that and to want to do it, because it's right there. It's written in her skills, and they've already identified a lot of them. And then it's just the next step of actually going ahead and capitalizing on some of that power drain, some of that, you know, buff and those self buffs that make her so strong and such, you know, just such a popular mutant. She's one of the most popular for that reason, and I just really would like to see them explore that a little bit more. Just embrace some of the creativity, embrace some of the sort of inspiration from the comic, embrace it a little bit more heavily. If you have to nerf it later, and I guess that's kind of the worry that Netmarble has, let's not make it too strong so that we don't have to nerf it, because, you know, when you nerf things, the player base gets upset. They had certain expectations for the character, and you're basically saying, you know what, we changed our minds. But I think that situation matters more for paid characters. You know, if you make a paid character too strong, everyone pays for them and gets the character, and then you realize it's upsetting the balance of the game and you have to go back on it, that's going to piss off the paying players. And, you know, as a mobile game business, you probably don't want to piss off your paying customers. But Rogue is, you know, very easily farmable. And so I also wanted to take this time when I was making this Rogue video, because I have just a couple of things that I want to remind you guys of, just not really worth a video, but, you know, worth a post or whatever. On the one hand, you should be already, since the first announcement that it was an X-Men update, you should be farming, not necessarily for Beast and Storm because they recently got uniforms, but hitting up those tracking missions for Cyclops and Rogue, because there's a very strong chance that one or both of them are going to get new uniforms. And it's also a good use of your energy, especially when you don't have any more boost points, to go ahead. Man, her damage is just so bad. It's a good use of your boost points, or sorry, lack of boost points. When your boost points are already at 0, the cost of the missions only goes up by 2 energy. So it goes up from 2 to 4, but 4 is obviously still really cheap. And you can get more than 20, well, you can get more than 10 if you have just the regular, but I have the shield support, so I can get more than 20 bios per day, because you get about 11 to 15 every time you do a run of 10, and then you can stock up, and I've been stocking up on bios for both Cyclops and Rogue in anticipation of this update. Finally, the last little thing I want to hit you guys up with, I know you guys have already seen the announcement, probably, I don't think it's here, but it's going to be here in the Notice tab. There is a live stream coming up tomorrow at 6 p.m. PDT, which is 9 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. New York time, 9 p.m. Toronto time. So I'm going to be on Twitch, as always, at 7 p.m., 2 hours before, just 2 hours before the Facebook live stream with Cage and possibly Karen, or maybe someone else, who knows. And so, yeah, hit me up on Twitch, join that, and watch the Facebook live stream with us on Twitch, so you get all the best reactions, and you get, you know, the best sort of insight into what they're looking at, because they're going to be giving us the first sneak peek, the first live sneak peek of this update before all the star agents get their chance to check out the APK, as far as I understand it, myself included. So, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Rogue and the great nerfing. Did you know that? And what do you think? Should we bring back the 24% chance to be immune? Does it matter anymore with the way that characters penetrate nowadays? Or should she have another leadership that maybe has a 15% chance to proc immunity, and that immunity would be immune to penetration the way that the CTP of regeneration is immune? So would it be possible to do something like that, ignores cancel and pierce effects, or is that too strong? Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Do you want to see videos for Cyclops and Magic or not? Subscribe if you enjoy, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.